Hello everyone, I'm Alicia. For this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to make this bracelet on my handmade loom. If you haven't seen my video for that, it is called How to Make a Bead Loom. Now, no one has really figured out a good way of finishing these loom bracelets, but I figured out how to do it using crimps. And as you can see, it looks really nice. It's really comfy to wear, and when I did it, it was much easier because usually when you finish off a loom bracelet, they tell you to take the threads and fold them back and then glue them to the piece. And another way is they take all the threads and they tie them together in a knot. And it just doesn't look nice because all this, you worked so hard on all this, and when you go to finish it off, it looks terrible. So I figured out a way to do it like this with the crimp beads, and you don't have to weave your warp threads back into these seed beads. So I'm going to show you how to do this today. And another thing I did, instead of using thread, white thread, like the fireline for the warp threads, I did 6-pound monofilament. And look, you could barely see the threads on the sides. It looks really nice. Now, I did use 6-pound fireline for my weft thread, the thread that you weave the beads on, but my warps were all 6-pound monofilament. They were clear, so you don't really see them. So if you remember, the reason why I made this loom is because I needed my cords to stay straight and taut on this bracelet. And the store-bought loom, this one, I couldn't get it to work on here because of how the bracelet attached to the loom. So I came up with a way to keep my cords taut and straight, and this is what I made. Now, I did make this just for these wrap bracelets, so I didn't really think about using the seed beads on this bracelet because I already had a store-bought loom for that. But I have had a lot of feedback, and I figured out how to thread your warp threads on this board, and I'm going to show you guys how to make the loom bracelet today with seed beads. Before we get started, you need to come up with a design that you would like to do on your bracelet. So Google loom graph paper and you'll find graph paper. I got mine from fusionbeads.com. And make up your own designs using crayons or markers or coloring pencils, whatever you like. These are designs that I made up. And to demonstrate how to do this, I'll just do this little pumpkin because it's Halloween. And I found that the bracelet is easier and best to finish off with the clasp if you do an even amount of threads. So in this bracelet I had 8 threads, so that means I have 7 rows of beads. So all these designs I made have 7 rows of beads. And you can actually get a really good design with just 7 rows of beads. Now you probably can go up and do 10 threads, so you would have 9 rows of beads if you wanted to go larger, and I think that you could end this bracelet the same way as you would the one I'm showing you how to make. Here is the list of materials you're going to need to make this bracelet. You will need 6-pound monofilament, and this will be for your warp threads. You will need 4 pieces of this monofilament, and each of them will be 3 feet long. This is for your warp threads. Now for your weft thread, I'm using 6-pound fireline, and you're going to need 1 piece of fireline that is 9 feet long. You're also going to need 4 crimp beads or tubes. You're going to need 2 jump rings or split rings. You're going to need 1 lobster claw clasp, size 10 beading needle, seed beads, and these can be 11/aught, 8/aught, and maybe even 6/aught seed beads. And of course you're going to need a loom. Make sure that your warp threads, the monofilament that you're going to use, is pretty thin stuff because we're going to take several of these strands back through these seed beads right here, and if they're not thin enough, it'll be a pain in the butt. This is the diameter I'm using, 0.010. The name brand doesn't really matter as long as you get a 6-pound test and the diameter is the same. If I left any information out, it will all be in the description box below the video. Now because I wanted my threads to be invisible so you can't really see them on my bracelet, I had to use the monofilament, but the monofilament doesn't show up that well on the camera. So what I'm doing for demonstration purposes is I'm going to take dental floss and show you how to make it with this, but I would not recommend finishing your bracelet with dental floss because it would not last. So see how I go around these hooks just like this, pull them straight and tie it down here. Make sure your threads are very tight. Do an overhand knot. Tie it around your screw. Pull all your threads really tight. And then do another overhand knot. And don't tie it this way, because if you do, you can't get it off your loom. Tie it this way, over the front. And then I'm going to tie just another one, because it does loosen up. But I'm going to tie this one down here. Now, if you need to get this off, you can use some kind of a sharp tool and pick at the bottom, and it comes right out. Now you need to separate your threads so your beads can sit in between them, and I find that a very small crochet hook works great for this. So here's one thread. I'm just going to bring it down here. Make sure that's separated. Here's another. Follow this. Bring it over. Go over here. And catch my last one. Over here. Now do the same to this side. Separate your threads to the width of your seed bead. I finished threading my loom at the top and the bottom, and now we're ready to put our beads on. So what I did, I put my thread on my needle, and remember we're working with long thread to pass a lot of the thread through your needle so it's not as hard to work with. Now I'm not going to tie a knot here, because if I do, it might be seen through my bracelet. So in my bracelet I didn't tie any knots on the edges. I tied all my knots inside my pattern with half hitch knots. So I'm going to start by putting my needle under my warp threads and picking up my pattern. The pattern starts from left to right. So I have to pick up 4 black beads, a green bead, and 2 black beads. Or you would pick up whatever pattern you're doing. Slide this down, and I'm going to leave a 9-inch tail because I need that tail to weave back through because we didn't tie a knot at the beginning. So press your seed beads up from the bottom underneath through your warp threads and pass your needle over top all of your warp threads and exit out. Leave a 9-inch tail. Remember that? And if you want, you could actually measure it. Slide these beads up to the top of your loom like this, and now we could do the next row. So I'm going to pick up 3 blacks, 1 green, 3 black, slide them down, and press, get the tail out of my way, press these seed beads up through the bottom of your warp threads and pass your weft thread with your needle over top of all the warp threads. You have to make sure that it does go over top of all of them. If you don't, you'll see that and it will pop, the bead will pop out. So pass your needle back under the warp threads, and we have to pick up our next row. 1 black, 5 orange, and 1 black. Slide them down. Pop your beads up between your warp threads and pass your needle over top of all the warp threads. Tighten it up. Make sure that it's nice and straight. If you don't, it could get wavy, and it's hard to fix that once you get pretty far. So pass your needle back under your warp threads. Every time you have to do this, and pick up your next row. My next row is going to be 2 orange, 1 black, 1 orange, 1 black, and 2 orange. Slide it down and press your seed beads up between your warp threads. Pass your needle over top of your warp threads, pull it through, and tighten it. Pass your needle back under your warp threads, pick up the next row. Mine is going to be 3 orange, 3 orange, 1 black, 3 orange. Slide them down and press them up through the top. And I use my fingernail sometimes because it helps a lot to do that. And go in all the seed beads and tighten it up. I'm going to do one more row. I have to pick up 1 orange, 1 black, 3 orange, 1 black, and 1 orange. Press them up from the bottom and pass your needle over top. So you're just repeating the same step over and over till you get to the length of the bracelet that you want. Now, my bracelet, I think that the clasp measure out 1 inch, so whatever you want your bracelet to be, if you want it to be 8 inches, you would make it 7 inches and you would add the clasp in, and that would be 1 inch. And the same would go with any other size you're trying to get. So keep going doing this stitch until you get to a bracelet that's long enough. Once you have finished the length of your bracelet, it is now time to take it off the loom. So it's actually pretty simple to do. Let me zoom in. Don't cut your string. You need them to be long enough so we can finish it. I'm just going to loosen mine up, take it off. Now this is easy to do with monofilament, but if you're using a thread, you might have to pick at it with a bead awl or something to get it off. Okay, so I got it off from here, and I just take it off from this side too. Now we have to reinforce our string, because see how this is sliding up? If you look closely here, it's a little tough to see, but my string is exiting out this side, and my monofilament's on the left side. I'm going to take my needle and pass it over my seed beads, over the warp threads like that. Pull it. Now I could take off my needle. And you have to do the same on the other side. Make sure that your warp threads don't go in that seed bead at the end. So pull your warp threads and just snug this just a bit. Now you have to do the same thing to this end. Take your thread, and my thread is on my right and the warp thread is on the left, so this means I have to go this way. I'm going to pass my needle over the top of all the warp threads and pull it out. Now take your needle off this one too. Now we have to finish off the bracelet to make it look like this. I'm going to show you how to do the warp threads. Alright, so we have 8 threads here. I'm going to take the 2 threads that are on the side, and I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads on both of these threads. So pass both threads through the 2 and slide them down. Then pick up your next 2 threads, these ones. And on these 2 threads, we're going to pick up 1 seed bead. slide that down. So now you have to take these 4 threads right here, and you have to put on a crimp bead on all 4 of these threads. Then slide that down. Now we have this. Now you have to do the same thing we just did to this side. Grab the 2 outer strings, leave your tail over there. We're going to weave that tail back in. Grab your 2 outer strings, pick up 2 seed beads, go through both of them with both of your outer strings, then pick up your next 2 strings on the inside. My crimp is going away. And go through 1 seed bead. Now pick up your crimp bead and all 4 of your strings. These 2 here and this one, and put them together and slide this crimp bead onto all 4 of these strings. Bring that down. Now we should have this. Now that we have this, we have to add our part of our clasp on. Because I'm using a split ring, I have to add it on now, but if you're using a jump ring, you can put it on after you do this part. So I'm going to put this on, all 4 strings, and then I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads on this string. Now this gets a little tough. I have to get all 4 seed beads to go over the fishing line. It's not that they don't fit through, it's that you're just passing so many through. Okay, I got all of them through. Now I'm going to slide this down. Now I have to take, this is what I did before, I laid it on my finger, and I have to get all these strings here to go through all 4 of these seed beads and the crimp. And I found this better to do 1 string at a time. 1 or 2 strings. So I'm going to pass them all through. I'm going to take another string. I'll do this one. Go through all the seed beads and the crimp. And you can also exit out the clasp too if you want. I have 2 left. I'm gonna see if I could do it with 2 at a time. Go through these 2. And the crimp. And one went through the crimp, the other one didn't. So I have to run this last one through the seed bead and the crimp. I'm just going to pass this through my clasp since all my other ones are. Now tighten up your strings. All of them. And you may have to pull them individually. After you have tightened your strings up, you need to take these strings on this side and pass them through that crimp because we already did it to this side. So I'm going to press the crimp up with my fingernail so I can better get my strings to go through. I'm just going to slowly pass them through. Alright, so now they are all going through that crimp on both sides. Just like that. Now, see how it's kind of like flat and weird? That's because we need to pass these strings through some of these seed beads. But I'm not talking about the seed beads alone. I'm talking about these here. So I'm going to take 2 strings. Somehow this one is coming out in the wrong direction. I'm going to take 2 strings and go down this seed bead here on the inside. And I'm going to do the same thing to the 2 outer seed beads. I'm going to take both of my strings and go through these 2 outer seed beads. There's one. Here's the other. Now we tighten it up, it starts to get rounder. Now you have to do the same thing to this side. You have to separate your strings, take 2 at a time, and pass them through this seed bead here. Take these 2 last. And pass them down through these 2 seed beads. Now you have to tighten up your strings. Do 2 at a time, tightening them up. Don't pull on your tail, your fireline tail. Do this side. Once your strings are all tightened and you don't have any monofilament left, we can go ahead and crimp it. Now we are ready to crimp our beads. I'm just going to use some bent nose pliers to do it. You can use chain nose. I just got a thing for these. I love these more than my chain nose. Just flatten them really good. And once they're flattened, you're going to take and trim off all this monofilament. You do need to keep your fireline though. Do not cut that one. So here's all my monofilament. I'm going to cut one side first. Try to cut close to your work, like this, but not too close that you would cut threads that you need, that are important. And trim these last 3 off. And now we have to take and tie this thread back into your work and tie some half-hitch knots. So I'm exiting out of this first row, and I'm going to go through about three or four beads X it out. Then I'm going to try to grab up the thread here that I was weaving with. Pull it through until I have a loop and go through the loop one time. Pull it down. Knot it. Then I'm going to pass my string through all 4 of the 11 seed beads. I'm going to turn it so I can see better. And I'm going to go through these 3 beads here. And now I'm going to tie another knot by snatching up this string. Making a loop, I'm going through it one time. Bring it down, go through the next seed beads here. And now I'm going to go down to the next row of beads. And go through like 3 or 4 of them. Pull it through. Get another thread. And tie another half-hitch knot. Go through these 3 beads. And just keep on going, tying like 1 or 2 more knots, and try to use up as much thread as you possibly can, just zigzagging back and forth through all your beads. Now you have to do the same thing to this side that we did by adding the crimps and going through all them, adding your seed beads, and tying your fireline back through your work. Just keep on going and finish with. I forgot to tell you that you do have to cut these strings, of course, to get your beads on. So, just like that. Cut them all. And now you're ready to do this end here on this side. Alright, so this is how you make this seed bead bracelet on my handmade loom. And remember, if you didn't see my video of how to make a loom, a bead loom, it's on my channel. You can find it on my channel. And don't forget to look for graph paper so you can make your own designs. Alright, so that's it. I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching, and show me what you make on Facebook. Goodbye!